Let's take a look at this question. You've just given intranasal naloxone to a 29-year-old who overdosed on fentanyl. Right, so what that means to me is that patient was in respiratory failure. After the initial dose, the respiratory rate increases to 16, but they remain unconscious. Vital signs now: pulse 100, respiratory rate of 16, 122 on 84. Pulse ox is 95%. Wow, that's great. Question asks, you should next. Now, let's do the correct answer first. The correct answer is you should transport this patient, right? You got their respiratory drive back. That's really good. So let's look at the wrong answers and why they're wrong and some of the traps and thinking problems we have in getting those. If you chose administer a second dose of naloxone, I'm guessing that you either read too quickly, and maybe you looked at the words fentanyl and unresponsive, unconscious, and you said, oh, wow, they're really sick, they got to give them more naloxone. Maybe you didn't understand naloxone is only for respiratory failure. It's not to wake people up, it's to make them breathe again. They don't need more naloxone. That's very clear. Now, the oral airway. There's two problems with oral airway. The first is the question says you should next. If this person needed naloxone, while you're getting the naloxone ready, they should have been ventilated. A primary assessment would have been done while you're figuring out it was an opioid overdose, and that's when the oral airway should have been used. So you should next, right? The horse has left the barn on this one. You should have previously done that. Not to mention the fact that now that you've given naloxone and got their respiratory drive back, they'd have a bigger chance of having a gag reflex now than when you initially did it. The oral airway, horse is out of the barn. It's not a you should next. Now, finally, high concentration oxygen. I think we're past the point where we blast everybody with non-rebreathers every more. And quite frankly, with a pulse ox at 95%, I don't believe that's necessary. Right? So it's really not even indicated. The patient's back and probably starting to breathe, and the saturation's going to go up. We, of course, would watch that. And if you were going to give oxygen, you don't need the big guns. You could do it with a nasal cannula. There's two benefits to that. One is that it delivers a lot of oxygen. And with a SAT of 95%, a cannula would be fine. But you can also monitor their airway. You don't have a mask over it. Right? High concentration oxygen here just isn't indicated by the numbers. So if you got this right, congratulations, time to transport this patient. They're still unresponsive. They've got to go to the hospital. They don't need more naloxone. The time for an oral airway has passed. High concentration oxygen isn't indicated. But this is the kind of question that you could easily go to any number of wrong answers with just a little bit of slip in judgment or reading the question too quickly. Good practice.